just this minute gotten in from training, my very first official winter training session back with the training group. It was a horrendously hard one. We went to Merthyr Mawr sand dunes, which for those of you who haven't been to them before, are natural sand dunes made like no other training facility. The dunes that we ran up this morning were about 50 metres long and the incline was like this, so it was a real session to go back with. I was really looking forward to trying out SmartGuard and the Enlite sensor with the Medtronic MiniMed 640g insulin pump. This was one of the main reasons that I wanted to try out this pump, because I wanted to see how it behaved in sport, and not just any kind of sport, but the kind of training that we do to become elite athletes in elite sport. So this morning I woke up about 7 to make sure that I could have my breakfast. I had about 30 grams of carbohydrate and my blood glucose levels were 8.9. I put in a new sensor a couple of hours ahead of training to make sure that it kind of bedded in nicely. I'd had time to let it warm up and calibrate and everything. That all went absolutely fine. On the way to training, Merthyr Mawr is about 45 minutes outside of Cardiff City, so my blood glucose levels started to rise a little bit. I think it was because of the adrenaline and the excitement of going to do my first training session. So they rose to about 15, to which I had to correct, but I did manage to get them back down before we started training. We did a mile-long warm-up, which is a long way when you're a sprinter, let me tell you, on a fairly kind of winding country road before getting to the sand dunes. That dropped my blood sugars from about 13 to 10. But what happened, unfortunately, was that the pump and the SmartGuard got a little bit confused and thought that my blood sugars went up instead. So when I had a look at the SmartGuard and the blood glucose levels on the pump, it showed 18, but I was thinking, oh, I don't feel like 18, best to test, and when I did, they were 10. So no problem, I switched off the sensor because I knew that it wouldn't calibrate such a big kind of difference in the readings, and switched it back on when I started training then. So I had my NIPS sports bra on, I had my pump by here, I had my sensor on, and I stayed connected for the whole training session, which is something that I don't always do, if I'm honest. Not that I advocate taking your pump off in sport, but I would say that I'm a very experienced athlete, and I find that I become very insulin sensitive when I'm sprinting because it's such a high impact sport. So to be able to keep my pump on during training and such a strenuous session was really impressive. My blood sugar stayed around the 10.4 to 10.2 range, which some people might think is quite high, but because of the adrenaline involved in the session and the exertion, I wasn't surprised that that's where they were. The session itself was what we call pyramids. So where you have to sprint on that incline I was talking about for about 50 metres, maximum intensity, driving your arms, pumping your legs. You get to the peak of the pyramid where you're running down, which you'd almost be kind of thinking that you're not working that hard because you're running down, but it just means a different set of muscles and you're still working hard. Back around the base of the pyramid and back up again. So we did 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, and then we did 3 massive long runs up to the top of this Big Dipper sand dune as well. A very, very strenuous session. But yeah, I couldn't even feel that I had the sensor on, which again is an amazing thing to be able to say. It isn't so much as wobble, which I'm amazed at myself because I've tried other sensors and they've gotten on my nerves, they've rubbed on my clothing, you get hot and sweaty obviously because you're exercising, and with other sensors the glue has annoyed me, but absolutely nothing like that. So we finished the session. My dad drove me home, just because I want to make sure that my blood sugars are okay rather than driving. When I got back to Cardiff, to my car, my blood sugars had started to drop, but SmartGuard kicked in, told me that it wanted to do a suspend on the pump. And my resounding thoughts are that the difference between training without SmartGuard and the MiniMed 640g insulin pump and not are that I felt confident, and for once I was able to stop thinking about my diabetes whilst I was training and just get on with the training session. I wasn't thinking about, oh my goodness, am I having a hypo, or is my heart pumping really hard because I'm exerting myself so much? I had that safety net there that it was just going to tell me if there was anything wrong. So I was really impressed with it. Bit of a shame about the blip beforehand, but these things happen and I was able to sort it before the session started, which was great. If you'd like to find out a bit more detail about my training session, you can have a look at my blog. The link is below. You can check out the pictures from me and my training group on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with us on Twitter as well.